Good to have you join us on the program 30 Minutes on NTA News 24. I'm Lydia Sampson. This week's edition will focus on the new agriculture roadmap known as the Green Alternative. Agriculture, no doubt, was the mainstay of Nigeria's economy until the discovery of crude oil in the early 70s. With the oil revenue pouring into the coffers of government, agriculture was unfortunately neglected. The unstable price of crude oil, with its attendant consequences over the years, has prompted government at different times to initiate various programs aimed at encouraging Nigerians to venture into agriculture in view of its numerous benefits. They include Operation Feed the Nation, Green Revolution, and the newly introduced Green Alternative. How have these programs fared, and what should be done to ensure the success of the Green Alternative to achieve the diversification agenda of the present administration? This is our focus in this week's edition of the program. Stay with us. From time immemorial, food is one of the major needs of human beings, hence the essence of agriculture. This sector had contributed largely to Nigerian economy from independence until the emergence of the oil boom. In this report, Timothy Yusuf takes a look at the efforts by the previous administrations to improve agriculture in Nigeria.
From the nation's independence in 1960, agriculture was the mainstay of the nation's economy, providing the largest chunk of foreign exchange inflow into the country. It contributed about 63% to the nation's gross domestic product (GDP), according to official statistics. The income was derived from the export of major cash crops as rubber, cocoa, palm oil, cashew nuts, groundnuts, and cotton, amongst others. Notwithstanding the low prices that agricultural products fetched at that time, the agriculture sector continually sustained the nation's economy. Experts say in those good years, Nigeria accounted for over 60% of the global supply of palm oil, 36% of groundnut oil, and 25% of cocoa, while farmers all over the country made money from their sweat. Then the quality of life was good as the nation was food sufficient, but today that has become history.
We are now right at the major cause of all the problems. Every one of us.
We're in a bad situation now. But it's not rocket science getting out of the bad situation where we find ourselves. You know, we have people with intellects.
With the dramatic shift of focus to crude oil exploration and the attendant oil boom of the 1970s, however, agriculture was displaced as the nation's main foreign exchange earner. As a consequence, agriculture's contribution to the nation's GDP declined to 34%, just as unemployment began to make an upward movement. Statistics show that the decline in the nation's agricultural sector from 1975 has resulted in the nation becoming a net importer of basic food items as agricultural productivity fell, leading to food insecurity, even though there are vast potentials in the country. The National President, All Farmers Association of Nigeria, AFAN, Architect Kabiru Ibrahim, bemoans the neglect of the agricultural sector, blaming it mostly on the discovery of crude oil. According to him, the discovery of the crude oil lured many youths away from the farms into the cities in search of white-collar jobs.
Hitherto, you know, in the 60s, it was agriculture that was used to even discover oil. We were self-sufficient, food sufficient in the 60s, but the discovery of oil distorted our outlook to agriculture. This went on, it didn't make much impact, except that Obasanjo himself tried, and I think he's still a farmer from those days. Eradua began, and I don't think he prospered as much as Obasanjo. And many other people, just pockets of them, tried to venture into agriculture, but really nothing happened.
We have land, we have resources in the sea that we have not exploited, even in the exclusive economic zone, the EEZ. So We need to diversify if we are serious with us.
Also sharing perspectives on the nation's agriculture since independence, experts said that it has become shameful that much of Nigeria's food requirements are imported, lamenting that agricultural raw materials are not in sufficient quantity as to effectively drive the nation's agro-allied industry. The decline has been so nauseating that the groundnut pyramids of the north, the rubber plantations in the Edo axis, cocoa and kola nut in the western areas and other commodities have become things of the past. The decline in agriculture notwithstanding, successive administrations at the federal level have over the years initiated various programs aimed at redressing the drastic decline in the sector. These include Operation Feed the Nation, OFN, program introduced by the erstwhile military regime of Olusegun Obasanjo in 1976, the Green Revolution program under Alhaji Shehu Shagari, and DFRI under General Ibrahim Babangida. Operation Feed the Nation was aimed at increasing the number of the nation's farmers and raise people's awareness of the key role agriculture plays in an economy. Observers recall that the fall in crude oil prices in the 1980s, which set the nation's economy on edge, somehow prompted the federal government to begin to rethink about the vast potential of agriculture. This inevitably led to the idea of the Green Revolution, pushed by the Shagari administration, which succeeded that of Obasanjo. Analysts say that the degree of success attained by the various programs at different times remains a matter for conjecture, but suffice it to say that, as at date, the nation's agriculture is still faltering. The immediate past administration under President Goodluck Jonathan also reiterated its resolve to restore the nation's lost glory in agriculture, considering the increased unpredictability of the world's crude oil market. Predictions that the nation's crude oil could dry up in the next 50 years has further underscored the necessity for the nation to go back to agriculture as the most dependable means of sustaining the nation's economy.
There wasn't enough passion, focus attached to ensuring that the agricultural sector will survive. I do have a feeling that a lot of past governments used politics for political reasons. They used politics for quick fix. And then whenever they enacted some of these green revolution and other types of revolutions in agriculture, they were not deeply thought through. And the reasons why agriculture has failed us so far were not addressed. I would like to look at two key areas that should have been addressed by former administrations. One is that we must have accessibility for the farmers. When you have government policies that aid farmers, soft loans and a lot of these things, accessibility is important. Farming is not done in the cities. Farming takes place in outskirts and rural areas. And so the first thing is, how do you marry transport system that brings the produce from where they are cultivated, harvested, to the consumers who live in towns? And when you go around the country, you see that there is a lack of access roads. There's a lack of accessibility. And I think this we must focus on. The government must address this peculiar, unfortunate aspect.
The present administration is poised to restore the lost glory of agriculture and has therefore launched its agricultural roadmap tagged the Green Alternative. The program is intended to redirect agriculture in the country to a job-creating and revenue-earning venture, especially with the downturn in the fortunes of the oil industry on which the country used to rely. The Green Alternative, which is a roadmap for growing Nigeria's agriculture from 2016 to 2020, is in three parts: productivity enhancements, crowding in private sector investment, and institutional strengthening and realignment. With this plan, the government hopes to grow the country's agriculture annually by 6% to 12%, double household income in 6 years to 12 years, and enhance the sector's capacity for foreign exchange, among others.
Now we are optimistic that this new agriculture promotion policy would have more impetus to development, to agricultural production and all that, because out of necessity we are forced to diversify our economy into agriculture, because our oil now, instead of being a blessing, is actually being a curse. If you see what is happening in the Niger Delta and all that, and the crash in the price of oil and all that, we are now forced to look at agriculture again. And we welcome this development. We were there when this agriculture promotion policy was launched. We expressed our hope, our delight in it, and we think that this government, knowing Muhammad Buhari's antecedents, we will now want to take him seriously. And what we urge the ministry to do, or the government to do, is to make the farmer the driver. Because you see, all those policies failed because the farmer was not given the driver's seat.
The difference between the previous interventions in the agric sector and the present one, the green alternative, is that the green alternative seeks to build on the existing programs and objectives of the agric transformation agenda, rather than consigning it to the dustbin of history. Is building upon it with very little changes for the purpose of policy sustainability and what have you. And for example, the growth enhancement scheme, which is a very beautiful policy and lofty objective of the agri transformation agenda, is also equally being sustained with very minor shift, because under the growth enhancement scheme there is a paradigm shift whereby agri is considered purely within the realm of a business venture rather than a developmental venture. But the innovation now made by the green alternative is to the effect that though we should view agriculture as a business venture, it should also be looked as a business developmental venture, because there is a need for government intervention to create the enabling environment for the private sector to come in and then embrace agriculture as a business. For example, opening of the rural areas for the purpose of transportation.
Yes, we believe in the agricultural strength of this nation. Look at Israel, a country without oil, but they are doing wonders. I've been to Israel several times. Some of their major economical source of revenue is agriculture, and they are doing wonderfully well, feeding the nation, feeding the world at large. Israel, they are one of the major exporters of goods and services today all over the earth. What do they have? What landmass does Israel have? Nigeria has lots of landmass. We have lots of chances of making the economy of this nation the number one, not even in Africa, but even the number third in the whole world. It is possible and it is visible if we can put our hands together and if we can make sure discipline is maintained.
To be able to achieve these laudable objectives, a number of things need be done, as the new plans should be based on past achievements and processes, among other things. While a process should be followed after planning with timelines, which should be followed meticulously to ensure progress. But some questions easily come to mind, ranging from what is in the new plan that makes it different from the others we have had in this country. Are we building on what is on ground, or are we starting afresh? What are the chances that this new agricultural plan will make a difference?
Thank you, Timothy. Moving on now, in its renewed efforts to diversify the Nigerian economy and further improve agriculture, the Buhari administration launched the Green Alternative. What does this initiative seek to achieve? Let's join Musa Baba Aliu to find out.
It came on board at a time when oil exporting countries are faced with challenges associated with oil prices and glut at the international market. The development has adversely affected the income of Nigeria, thereby affecting her socio-economic growth. It is on the light of this that the administration is focusing on agriculture for more revenue generation as it was before the discovery of oil. The objective is for the country to be self-sufficient in staples such as rice, maize, cowpea, sorghum, as well as in dairy products.
Today, oil is a dwindling revenue, it's a Western asset, and we don't have a future with oil. So we now have to move to agriculture. To move to agriculture, we cannot achieve substantial sustainable development unless the research system, agricultural research system, extension system, education system is put in such a strong foundation that can drive it.
Research shows that Nigeria is currently housing over 60 million farmers who have been contributing to the national food production chain using local know-how in cultivation, processing, and marketing of their produce.
We should not rely on what we call the political farmers who have large-scale farms and yet they are not farming. It is the small holdings that are sustaining this country, and I think we should have a lot of regard for them, recognize them, bring them close to the government, and then try to see how we can fund them and also provide the necessary inputs for their own production.
The major challenge before the farmers, as investigations show, include access to input such as fertilizer and chemicals, storage, and low yield as a result of environmental challenges.
One of the major constraints has been that there has been a gap between the researches that are carried out within the research system and linking to the farmers. Most often, the researches are carried out without the input of farmers and other stakeholders.
The other area that we need to focus on is generally increasing productivity of land. When you compare crop production, whether you take maize, you take sorghum, or even rice, and compare with the global average production, Nigeria falls very low. What we need to do is not only expand the area under production, but to intensify production so that we can increase production per hectare.
Having identified this, the federal government says it is rolling out policies and programs that will not only address the challenges, but assist in boosting farmers' production. This will be achieved as the government says it will sustain the Growth Enhancement Scheme program introduced by the former Minister of Agriculture, which allows farmers access to inputs through mobile phones.
One of the big things we have to do now is to increase the extension services in this country. Right now, there's one extension officer to about 10,000 farmers. It's far too small. So our dream is to put an extension office in every local government in the next 3-4 years.
Currently, the federal government, under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, is rolling out robust reform programs across its agricultural sector aimed at cutting the country's dependency on food imports, creating jobs and generating growth, as well as revamping the sector. The government intends to prioritize improving productivity into a number of domestically focused crops and activities. To this end, priority is being given to the production of rice, wheat, maize, fish, dairy milk, soybeans, poultry, horticulture, and sugar. The government will also prioritize for export markets the production of cowpea, cocoa, cashew, cassava, including starch chips and ethanol, ginger, sesame, oil palm, yam, beef, and cotton.
One of the most critical components of that plan is to position agriculture as the arrowhead of our economic recovery efforts. There's no question at all that if we get agriculture right, we will get our economy right. The roadmap that we're about to present identifies two key challenges. The first is the inability to meet domestic food requirements. This is a productivity challenge driven by an input system and farming model that is largely inefficient. Inadequate seeds, fertilizers, irrigation, crop protection, etc. And two, the inability to export at levels required for market success. Inefficient, which is typified by an inefficient system for setting and enforcing food quality, poor knowledge of target markets, a weak inspectorate system, and poor coordination amongst relevant agencies. With great clarity, the green alternative sets out strategies for resolving these challenges. I'm personally impressed that the roadmap does not dismiss the agricultural policies of the past. Indeed, the policy says of itself, and I quote, building on the successes of the agricultural transformation agenda, closing the gaps, end of quote.
In this regard, Nigeria is expected to generate over 10 trillion naira from the export of cassava products and save over 20 billion naira from rice and wheat.
Yeah, if you go to ethanol, we get 166 liters of ethanol from 1 ton of cassava. If the same number of tonnage is used for ethanol, we are going to get 9.9 trillion.
Hides and skin is another sector that is expected to have a significant impact on the diversification initiative. Nigeria is expected to earn over $100 million from export of hides and skin and additional $20 million from the production of milk and dairy products.
We have the best of goats. We have the Sokoto Red, we have the Sahelian, we have the middle bed short goats. Count them. But nobody is turning this into a very important product. Agriculture in Nigeria and animal husbandry in Nigeria can give Nigeria more money than what Nigeria can get in crops. And it can equally give money as good as petroleum.
Non-oil export, especially the agricultural side, can actually bring in between 250 to even $500 billion, if well harnessed. It is there. It is just for us to be serious and to really take it as the only saving grace left for our country.
States and local government across the Federation have been advised to identify and support production of crops in their states that will boost food security and bring in more income to their coffers.
It is hoped that the new initiative will be followed with timelines which will be monitored meticulously to ensure progress and, in the long run, success of the program. That is our package for this week. Have a nice time. I'm Lydia Sampson.